Hey guys, I wanted to take a minute and address a question that I had on Facebook. I've actually gotten it, in different forms from different people, but I wanted to just kind of address the principle of it. The question in particular that I received was, the context was is that we were doing some drills, we were grappling over a blue gun, and this individual said that, well, if there's striking involved, then this situation would have looked a lot different. You're right, he would have. Whichever one took his hand off the gun to try and deliver strikes in that particular scenario would have ended up losing the gun. The reality is that a lot of times we sit here and we want to try and insert our own paradigm in there, our own background, our own preferences into a situation without consideration for the entire situation as a whole. In this particular scenario, we had two guys that were on the ground. They were both grappling over a gun, and they're both fighting for real estate of the gun. They're both fighting for the optimum leverage on a gun. So both guys got two hands involved in the fight. They're both fighting over that gun, making sure the muzzle doesn't come back on them, but also trying to disarm their opponent at the same time. Whichever one takes his hand off of that gun to try and deliver a strike in that situation, whichever individual does that has now just relinquished 50% of his control to the opponent, which means that his opponent now has two hands on the gun versus the one, which means he's got twice as much control of that weapon. In a weapons-based environment, to try and implement striking at the risk of control is not really what you want to do. Not in my opinion, anyway. Now, that is not to say that striking in and of itself is bad. What it means is that I have to get into a position where I can still maintain control of my opponent and the gun and deliver striking. So maybe in that particular situation, in that particular video, they were in the guard position. Maybe in that particular situation, what you would want to do is you'd want to control that gun. You'd want to get past the guard and get over to maybe side mount where you can control that weapon and then maybe deliver some knee strikes or something like that. The point is this: you don't ever want to introduce striking into a situation unless it's to your advantage. Striking for the sake of striking is pointless. I don't know who came up with this idea of the one-punch knockout, but it's so rare. I'll be honest with you, I've never actually seen one. I've seen video, but for all the fights that I've been involved in, for all the things that I've seen doing security work and stuff, I've never actually seen a one-punch knockout. I'm not saying that it can't happen, but I can tell you this right now. The level of rarity means that I'm not going to be basing my entire well-being on letting go of the gun with one hand just to deliver a strike in the hopes that I get a one-punch knockout to incapacitate this dude to take the gun away. That's not a risk I'm willing to take. That's a low percentage move. What I'm looking to do is make sure at all costs that muzzle does not come back on me. And the second he removes his hand from the gun to try and deliver a strike to me, I'm going to take that gun away from him. So I will trade a punch to the face for control of the gun. Now, that may be a preference thing, but I think it's based in reality. So you guys kind of decide on what your thoughts are. That's my thoughts on how I go about prioritizing. By the same token, I would not recommend you guys introducing a gun into a fight unless it's a situation that is to your advantage. So let's say that I'm face down on the ground and I'm carrying an appendix and I've got a guy sitting on my back. In that particular case, probably not the best scenario for me to draw my gun at that position because I'm not in a position to be able to use it. What I want to be able to do is I want to be able to get him off my back. I want to be able to get to a situation where maybe I'm on my back on the ground to where I can utilize that gun and not just introduce a weapon into an environment that I don't control only to have that weapon taken away from me and used against me. So think about it from that perspective. When we're talking about weapons, we're talking about striking, we're talking about grappling, we're talking about anything, there are no tools that are off limits or that are inherently bad. What's bad is how they're used. And if they're used in a manner that benefits your opponent and not you, then they're just plain bad. So You guys think about that. Train hard.